peaceful strokes across a pool, to the gracefulness of a kayak, to the gentle lapping of Lake Michigan, healing powers of water always centered me. So, when I was planning my wedding, I decided to incorporate my love of water into age-old traditions. For millennia, Jewish women have observed the mikveh, or ritual bath. The first time that a woman enters the mikveh is the night before her wedding. She immerses herself, naked, 3 times, into a body of water that is naturally fed. Then, 5 days after the end of each menstrual cycle, a woman again immerses herself in the mikveh. She may then have sex with her husband. Day 12 after your period starts is considered ideal for conception. The rabbis had a plan. Typically, when a woman immerses herself in this ritual bath, she does so indoors in an indoor pool, which is built to standards specified by rabbinic literature. At least 3 cubits deep, 1 cubit wide, 1 cubit long. Whatever a cubit is. A witness, who may be a partner or a mikveh lady, ensures that the 3 immersions are kosher. That is, the woman's entire body has been covered by water. Though the mikveh is more commonly performed by Orthodox Jewish women, I, a non-Orthodox Jewish woman, driven by my love of water and ritual, decided to do my own take on this tradition. I invited female family members and friends to join me at a beach on Lake Michigan on the evening before my wedding. After the rehearsal dinner, and after it was dark enough that I was unlikely to be arrested, these women gathered with prayers, well wishes, music, and dance to bless me as I entered my next life stage. To close off, I ran into the lake. 1, I did a swan dive into the freezing early summer waters. 2, I was enveloped by waters that had circulated the earth many times over. 3, I was embraced by generations of women on their wedding nights. Blessed are you, majestic spirit of the universe, who makes us holy by embracing us in living waters. After being declared kosher by a chorus of female witnesses, I emerged to the sound of friends beating on drums, my aunt shaking a tambourine, the dance of the hora, and the traditional songs that had been sung to Jewish brides and grooms for centuries. Having felt the power of the mikveh and the power of women, I continued to observe the ritual each month. Each time, embraced by women would come before me. 3 children later, I still visit that beach on Lake Michigan. I can still feel the loving presence of those dear to me. Hear their songs, see them dancing.
Whiling away the hours, paging the Sears catalog, 1949, dreaming of owning this and that, my eyes would wander to the pages of the bras and girdles, especially the women pictured with those bulging stomachs and large breasts. For those women, someone had created the one-piece bra and girdle designed to truss up distended bellies. I prayed my body would not look like those. Please, God, if there is one, no. In my slender late teens, I wore the Merry Widow strapless black, lacy, long-line bra, ending at the waist. Over my hips, I tugged the all-rubber Playtex girdle, smoothing the lines for ease of male reading. I began wearing small bras and hip huggers 10 years later, trying to be cool. Then the babies came and came and came until even the catalog could not picture the foundation I desired. Thanks to the feminist revolution, my breasts now hang free. They lie against my body, girded only when I run or lift weights. My body is dangerously close to that 1949 Sears model. I am determined not to bind my body, but to love it, to follow the decree of the bumper sticker, when you love something, set it free.
I was a virgin with a 4.0. I was third in my class, the editor of the yearbook, and a member of the state championship volleyball team. I had already been accepted to Northwestern as a junior. Then, on St. Patrick's Day, I cut school with my friends. And by 3:30 that day, I knew my luck had run out. 6 weeks later, I cut school again to go to the Planned Parenthood on Chapin Street, where my fears were confirmed. My rabbit had died. I was pregnant. This did not fit into my paradigm. I expected my boyfriend, he was a college junior, 4 years older than me, I expected him to take me to Chicago for an abortion. The fact that I was Catholic complicated this plan. But it was a way to take care of the situation. And that's what I was looking for those first few days. I prayed for a miscarriage. What is the patron saint for that? Then I realized that really wasn't that much different than wanting to have an abortion. Somewhat to my surprise, he suggested we get married. That also wasn't in my paradigm. But it seemed like an alternative. He had enlisted in the Army just before his junior year at Purdue had ended. What that would mean for us as a married couple was full medical benefits, a housing allowance, and PX privileges. I had never, ever thought about being an Army bride, but it looked like that was going to be my future, not wearing purple in Evanston. I didn't tell anyone for several weeks, not my mother, not my friends. And when I did finally tell a friend, it wasn't, "Oh no, what are you gonna do?" or "Congratulations." It was more of a, "Well, if you hadn't been screwing around, that wouldn't have happened." I knew she was sleeping with her boyfriend, so I was a little surprised by her self-righteous reply. I know now that she was just responding from that gut level, "Thank God it's you and not me." Who wouldn't? Telling my mother was impossible. It turned out to be the most bizarre, awkward exchange I could have ever imagined. It took place before school, while my mother smoked a cigarette and drank her first cup of coffee. She didn't say anything. And after a few seconds, she took another puff and said, "I guess I was waiting for the other shoe to drop." The first shoe had been my general behavior that year, staying out late, wearing my hair long and my skirts short, and underage drinking. I don't know if she told her best friend, who lived down the alley, or if she told my mother, her mother who lived with us. I don't think she did. My mother was very good at keeping secrets. At that very moment, she was dying of cancer and hadn't even told me yet. In fact, before I left, she told me that we wouldn't tell my father about my situation yet. It's not a good time, she said. But I was okay with that. I knew it would kill him. I was his baby. Even though it had been 6 weeks since I found out, I was still hoping it would just go away. But then, 2 days before Christmas, my daughter was born. And she showed no defects, except for maybe problems spelling when she got older. But God created spell check for that. But 40 years later, everything turned out just fine.
Video games have been a part of my life since I was 4 years old, starting with Game Boy Pockets and Pokemon Blue. Things were simpler then, when we were just little kids who played Nintendo games on black and white battery-powered screens. As we grew up, though, things became more complicated. Instead of being respected and embraced by those who share a similar interest, lady gamers face hatred and disrespect. For instance, choices of games are subject to vocal male disapproval. Oh, you play video games? You mean easy, casual games like Farmville and Angry Birds, right? Not real games! Female interest in games is assumed to be feigned for the purpose of pleasing men. You're just wearing that Call of Duty shirt to get attention. You probably never even held an Xbox controller. Within the games themselves, men play as female characters, not because they respect them, look up to them, as I did to Sandra from Advanced Wars when I was young, or for reasons related to gameplay. Instead, it's to oogle the unrealistically drawn female bodies, to drool over pixelated assets. Knowledge of games is questioned solely on the basis of gender. And not only are women assumed not to be informed, but they are also expected to answer any question, no matter how asinine, obscure, or pointless, just for the sole purpose of being humiliated and made out to be a poser. Really? You played The Legend of Zelda? So, how does it end? How many units did the 4th game in the franchise sell in Japan? What was the release date for the original PlayStation? Without Googling? Oh, can't tell me. I knew you didn't know. We have the so-called nice guys who pretend to be our friends, share our interests, just to get a little something. Wow, you like Pokemon too? Awesome! Can you send me a tit pic? Then of course we have those who just cut straight to misogyny. Bitch, go make me a sandwich. And if those problems were not enough, have you ever heard of Gamergate? It's a violent, reactionary movement that involves threats of death and rape being sent to female gamers, who, by the way, make up nearly half of the gamer population. That's right. Almost half of the gaming population is endangered, simply by being female and loving games. Why is it this way? What's with the misogyny, racism, objectification, and violence? Why does that appeal to so many straight white male gamers, to whom many of the games are marketed? And why do I, as a trans person who currently appears male, have to live with the knowledge that if I looked like the girl that I truly am inside, I would be subject to the same treatment? And why do I almost hope for it, as some sort of recognition of my womanhood? Of course, you aren't like that, right, Mr. Nice Guy?
He is here. 8 pounds, 5 ounces of glorious perfection. I stroke his hair as he latches onto my breast and begins to drink. I am his mother. I am elated, complete, connected to my baby. And then it arrives, just as it did with his older sister. This time it's much worse. This time, antibiotics and injections do not help. This time, my breast is swollen, hard, painfully hot, welted, raw. This time I have a fever, I hallucinate, I can barely move. I drift in and out of sleep, only vaguely aware of my surroundings. She comes, the lactation consultant, to deliver her fire and brimstone sermon on breastfeeding. Breastfed babies are less sickly than bottle-fed babies. Breastfed babies have fewer relationship problems. Breastfed babies don't have attachment disorders. Breastfed babies don't end up in prison nearly as often as bottle-fed babies. Your baby needs your breast. Breast, 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 breast! Initially, she puts the fear of God in me. But then something changes. When we're home, I start to trust myself. 20 years out, my son is still here, healthy as a horse. He's intelligent enough to be an honor student in college. Hardly the dysfunctional, maladjusted jailbird he was destined to be. Somehow, even though we defied the gospel according to the lactation consultant, I think we have done just fine.
When your dad's friend puts his hand down your shirt, you feel ashamed, you cry, and you go back downstairs to talk to his wife. When your dad's boss puts his tongue down your throat, you don't tell anyone for years. No matter how many times you're forced to smile and say hello to him. When your dad's coworker holds you close and whispers that you've been a bad girl. You hope your parents understand your discomfort when you say you don't want him around. When your dad's friend grinds on your ass and tells you he wishes he was divorced, you go to bed early and hope he never comes back. When your dad's best friend texts you he wants to come in your ass, you cry yourself to sleep every night, questioning who would it be worse to tell, his wife or your dad. When that same man comes into your room in the middle of the night, you pull out your gun and you pray you don't have to pull the trigger. And when you finally tell your dad, he holds you close and he tells you how brave you are. And if you had only told him sooner, he could have protected you and stopped it. But sometimes the monsters can still find their way back in.
on all fours, elbows sticking up in the air over her head like some awkward spider. He was hissing, growling, taunting. "How dare you try to use the kids to protect yourself? Go ahead, call your dad, Janice, call the police." The white of his snarl offered a sinister glow as he pointed a rifle at her chest, at her face. My mother scrambled through our room, into her room, slammed the door. My father retreated down the stairs. She made a phone call on an old, heavy, marble rotary phone. Who was she calling? Grandpa? The police? I don't remember. I do remember being told to pack a bag. At the age of 5, I didn't know what pack a bag meant. My brother told me to put clothes in it for tomorrow. Kneeling in front of the dresser, bottom drawer pulled out, I stared at pink and blue sweatpants and thought that this was too much responsibility to handle. It was the biggest order that I had been given. I don't remember what I packed. Police cars outside, red and blue lights. Police talking to my mother. My father in his room on the first floor, kneeling on his bed, looking outside. He told me that I should go with my mother. I did. This whole thing was all because my sister and I had been playing house, using a long, thin white rope to make a clothesline between chairs. My mother was so amused at our creativity and inventiveness that she left it up, probably to show my father. When he came home from the bar that night, he stumbled into our clothesline, accused my mother of trying to hang him. Out came the rifle. You know the rest. After my parents' divorce, life changed for myself, my mother, and my siblings, but my father's alcoholism remained constant. We knew never to answer the phone after 5 p.m. if it was Dad. By that time, he would already be drunk, angry, combative, insulting, irrational. He eventually lost his job due to his dishonesty and shoddy attendance record, both caused by his alcohol abuse. Instead of working in other towns, as was his responsibility, he locked himself up at home and took drinking vacations. He quit life after becoming unemployed. With the blinds tightly shut, he would spend his days sitting on the couch, drinking vodka, smoking cigarettes. He sat so much that his muscles atrophied, and he lost the ability to walk. He lost his body, too. He would vomit, shit blood, urinate on the couch, feet seeping liquid into the carpet. Father's Day was the last time I saw him. We reluctantly went to visit. He didn't eat the dinner we made, but he did attempt to eat some cantaloupe while we watched TV in silence. When he began heaving, he tried to hold it down, either because he didn't want to do it in front of us or because he knew he couldn't get to the bathroom in time. My brother finally shoved a trash can in front of him, and in went the cantaloupe, bloody. I sighed and left. I was ashamed of him. I was done with him. I resented him. I resent him. He finally died a year and a half ago. I found out from my uncle. My brother had little emotion. My sister cried. I grieved, but not for who my father was. I grieved for who he could never be.
It hurts. The moisture does not help. I can feel her knuckles inside of me, pushing into my softest spot. She knows me.
And when she feels resistance, she slaps my breasts hard and pulls my nipples. I let out the most amazing, liberating cry as her fist slides right into my soul. I feel her. She fills me to the core. A space that can barely hold a light tampon opens up to her, desiring, needing, craving her hand. She reaches a part of me no one else does, and it is the most beautiful and relaxing feeling I have ever had. I fist her too, over and over again until there's no feeling in my hand or my arm. I love being inside of her, feeling the warmth and wetness of her body as it clenches my hand. I need it rough. I crave it rough. It has to be rough. Show me you can take care of me. Show me that you can fuck me hard and you can love me hard. Show me you're strong enough. If you want to hold my hand, hold it tightly. Make sure that I can feel it. Put muscle behind every movement. Be strong, emotionally, physically, and mentally, and require these things in your lover.
How do we make decisions? I mean, the really important ones. The ones that set a course for a lifetime. In my case, one sentence, spoken by a man on a summer's day when I was 17, cleared the path through the wilderness of options. Before I tell you what those words were, I have to take you to the summer of 1955, when I was 15. One morning, Mother and I visited a friend of hers. She stood in her yard, and as Mother and she chatted, I heard laughter from the side of the house. Two older high school girls sat on swings that hung from a tree. I had never met them, but I knew who they were. They were my mother's friend's granddaughters, Dakota and Tucson. At school, they had reputations as girls headed for trouble. Everybody talked about them, and about their father too, and how he had named them for places he would rather be. 3 days after I saw them, Dakota would climb out of a bedroom window using a sheet that Tucson wrapped around a bedstead. She'd slide down as far as she could before falling into the arms of an older man who would whisk her away. He was a widower whose first wife had died by drowning, leaving him with 4 small children. I imagined Dakota the night she escaped. In my mind, she was gorgeous in a white square neck dress with scallops at the bodice. Her skirt gathered, accentuating her tiny waist. I imagined she wore crinolines to make her skirt fuller, and when she fell to love, her dress billowed like a peony suddenly opening. And because her lover was so strong, he caught her and spun her around 3 times while they quietly laughed into each other's necks. 2 years later came the fateful day when I made my lifetime decision. Mother had heard about some poor folks who had a brass bed to sell, and she wanted to buy it to turn my bedroom into a guest room. She wanted me to go to college. I was thinking I could go to Hollywood and become an actress instead. We drove out to buy the brass bed, and Mother tried to talk me into going to school instead of Hollywood. As our truck pulled into their lane, I saw how poor these people really were. A kind of poor I had only read about in required books about the Great Depression at school. We got out of the truck. I hung back, as usual, while Mother pressed forward. A man sat on the porch step, cleaning his fingernails with the knife. As Mother approached, he stood, snapping the pocket knife closed. He wore stained bib overalls and a flannel shirt with tears at the elbows. A toothpick rested at the corner of his mouth. He and Mother said hello, and she asked him about his life. She was good at that. As the two talked, several children appeared on the porch. I hadn't recognized his wife, who was holding a baby at her hip and standing among them. "You come here for the bed?" He pointed to the brass head and foot rails leaning against the side of the house. "Did we want them?" "Yes." "How much were they?" "What would we give?" And as Mother came up with an amount I can't remember, his toothpick moved back and forth between his teeth. Mother added a little extra money to get something for the kids. As he loaded the bed into the truck, he glanced my way and said, "Who's this with you?" "Oh, this is my daughter. She's getting ready to go to college. The bed is for her room." He stopped loading the bedstead and dangled his arm over it as though it were a fence. He looked at the whole of me, wandering the surface of my body with his eyes and working that toothpick between his teeth again. He shook his head. "Shoot," he said. "She don't need to go to no school to learn what she's gonna have to know." Just as my eyes looked down, I heard Mother say, "That's what you think." "That son of a bitch," my mother said as she drove down the lane. "Why in hell Dakota ever married a man such as that, I'll never know." I went to college. Years later, Mother called to tell me Dakota's husband lined his family up against a wall during a drunken tirade and threatened to murder them with a shotgun. People said Dakota begged him to let her kill herself and their unborn child first. Apparently, he thought it was a good idea because he turned the shotgun over to her. She blasted him out of existence. She went to jail, and I spent a lifetime in school learning what I had to know.
I'm not sure when I first realized I was attracted to women. I like men too. I mean, the absolute best sex I ever had was when I was a junior in college. He was 2 years older than me. He was foreign. What a divine accent. I remember how he smelled. He reeked of masculinity. He was crazy in bed, he had a motorcycle, and he couldn't possibly be more of a bad boy. We were never really a thing, though. He made that clear. But one night, after a party with copious amounts of tequila, I had a threesome with him and another girl. It blew my mind. But that wasn't the first time I realized I was attracted to women. To be completely honest, I think the first time when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I was putting away toys with my best friend at the time. I remember looking at her and wondering, what would it be like to kiss her? I didn't quite know how to process that idea, though. Because I had grown up in an incredibly sheltered household, I didn't even know what the word gay meant until I was in middle school. I buried these thoughts, and for the most part, they stayed buried. They came back with a vengeance, though, when I was 16. She was a year younger than me. Her hair was black and soft and curly. She listened to all the screamo bands, and she painted her nails black, and she smoked Marlboro Reds. We were in marching band together, so we rode a lot of buses in the fall. She would let me listen to her iPod, an earbud for each of us. Damn, I said to myself, I really like her. I convinced myself that we were just friends, but I would have kissed her in a heartbeat. The romantic highlight of my sophomore year in high school was when we were on a bus and she fell asleep with her head in my lap. But I never told her, and she moved away, and I moved on to guys because I just didn't know how to feel about girls. I was beginning to find girls attractive, and I didn't know how to handle it. My first kiss with a girl was at a party my junior year of college. I'd had a fistful of boyfriends in my life up to that point, and the last breakup had been excruciatingly painful. So I decided to be single for a while. We had been drinking at this party, and she found out I had never kissed a girl. So she took matters into her own hands. She was a good kisser. The threesome happened not long after that. Then I really couldn't hide the fact from myself that I was attracted to women. I started noticing things, like porn did nothing for me unless it was lesbian. My own artwork was exclusively female-oriented. And in a room full of new people, my eyes always went first to the women. Finally, I had to tell myself, stop fighting it. Part of me feels vaguely guilty about it. Like there's one big gay party that I'm trying to crash just so I can wear that little rainbow pin and march in their parades. But it really isn't like that at all. I'm not trying to be the center of attention. I just want to be true to myself. There are all sorts of dilemmas when you realize you're a woman who likes other women. Who pays for dinner? Will my female friends all think I'm attracted to them? Does this mean I'll never date a guy again? But my biggest fear is this. How do I tell my family? Do they still think I'm straight? They've met several of my boyfriends before, and my dad did ask me if I was uncomfortable with being single for so long. And my parents know I'm an ally because I wore a button emblazoned with it when I went home once, and my dad went religious over it. He even got out the Bible so that he could explain to me how Christians should feel about homosexuality. Spoiler alert, he used the word abomination. There's a stereotypical idea of what gay and bisexual women should look like. Society seems to think that every lesbian must be a butch who likes football, wears men's clothes, and never shaves her legs. There's an assumption that to be attracted to females means giving up part of your femininity. All I know is I'm the same girl I've always been. I like video games. I hate football. I like to wear men's t-shirts, and I even wear stiletto high heels. Not at the same time as the t-shirts. I can't cook, but I can clean. I'd like to grow my hair really long, but I'll always keep my nails short. I'm the person I've always been. I just happen to like girls as much as I do guys. I have a lot of concerns and questions, of course, and they seem to grow with every passing day. I don't have all the answers. But this I do know. Just because I'm attracted to women does not make me any less of a woman.
When I was younger, I was so shy. I thought I would never be the girl who has a lot of sex. It wasn't until I graduated from high school that I lost my virginity. And I could not believe how great sex felt. Everything changed
all of a sudden, and I had a completely different viewpoint about sex. I grew out of my shell and was not afraid to talk to men and learned that it was okay to enjoy sex. I felt stronger, more beautiful, and more empowered after I started having sex. Maybe it was the attention I would get from men, the way they would flirt with me, tell me I'm beautiful, and the way they would love my body. But then I began to wonder why a woman who has sex with a lot of different guys is considered a hoe, slut, a whore, whatever you want to call it. But if a man does the same thing, he's thought of as this great, powerful, cool, macho guy. What is wrong with this picture? Well, let me tell you. I am a woman that can do exactly what men can do, especially when it comes to sex. Men get to enjoy the pleasure of sleeping with numerous women, so why can't women do the same thing? I'm not saying that I'll just sleep with any random guy off the street, but I have had my share of one-night stands and hookups and flings and relationships. I love sex. Does this make me a hoe, a slut, a whore, etc.? Society is likely to say I am, but I'm not any of those things. I'm just a woman who loves sex. Get over it. It is not a big deal to me. I am still young, have no kids, and have a college degree. So why can't I have some fun? I should not have to be ashamed of this. I will tell any person who asks what my number is, and no, I do not mean my cell phone number. I mean the what is your number question, referring to how many men I've slept with. I'm not embarrassed to tell my number. It's my sex, and I can do what I want with it. I love the feeling, touching, kissing. Kisses on my nipples, neck down low will make me go crazy. All the sensual, exoteric feelings we get from sex. We should not be embarrassed to admit that as women, we love sex too, not just men. It's time to stand up to society and stop hiding our sex lives. As women, we need to enjoy it, experience it, and embrace it.
We are starting a revolution of autonomous women with autonomous bodies who do not believe the lies we have been told about our bodies and our sexualities.
We will no longer allow our bodies to be public property.
We will no longer listen to the lies that we have been told by religion and the media. We will no longer let our bodies be controlled by someone else.
Religion would have us believe that our sexuality is dangerous and therefore needs to be controlled, that women cannot be trusted with something so powerful.
We will not listen to the lies anymore. We will broadcast the truth about our bodies.
Fuck yes, our bodies are powerful enough to be dangerous.
And those lies about sex? Well, we know that it's our right to enjoy sex without feeling guilty.
We know that women have been systematically brainwashed into thinking that their bodies are not a sign of sexual pleasure and enjoyment.
To the perpetrators of this most offensive and oppressive lie, I say eat me. I know how marvelous, strong, and amazing my body is, and I know that it scares you.
For those of you that need a reminder, here are some truths about that living wonder we call the female body.
Our breasts are not here to be objectified. They are here to give milk to our children, comfort to our lovers and friends, pleasure to our bodies. Therefore, we will no longer hide them away or put them on display for someone else to get off on.
We will no longer let our vaginas, our clits, our pussies be misused and disused. They will no longer be cut and sewn up, only to be ripped open by men who have never been taught better.
We will stop believing the lies that our pussies are gross, are unclean, and are ugly. Our clits are not something that can be or should be ignored. They should be worshipped, valued, and loved for their beauty and their design.
We will no longer hate our bodies. We will love and accept them.
We will value our bodies and demand the immediate rights and respect entitled to us under the law as fellow human beings.
We will stop being quiet about rape and abuse, for there is no shame in telling the truth.
We will stop taking responsibility for other people's actions against us and our bodies.
So yes, we are starting a revolution. The pussy revolution.
A revolution of autonomous women who are the sole owners of their bodies.
A revolution of women who like to fuck and like to screw.
Women who do not feel guilty about enjoying sex.
Women who know they have the right to say no and the right to say yes.
Women who advocate for their bodies, their sexualities, and themselves.
Women who masturbate.
Women who are not afraid of their bodies.
Women who have never had an orgasm.
Women who have been abused and misused.
Women who are scared and tired.
Mothers, daughters, housewives, college students, men.
You, and yes, you.
All of you. Everybody can join our revolution.
Rise up with us. Join the pussy revolution. Let us hear you